Now, as many as 19.3 million voters in Taiwan will elect a new president on January 13th. That's this Saturday. Their vote could act as a major flashpoint in the global tussle for power. But why are these polls in the tiny island so significant for the entire world? Let's break it down for you. The stakes are high. Hanging in the balance are three major players. The island's newly elected president will decide whether Taiwan sees a sovereign future. The polls will also shape future relations between Beijing and Washington. Let us first address the dragon in the room. China sees Taiwan as its own. It has repeatedly vowed reunification under the One China policy. But the leading candidate from the ruling party, who is Lai Ching-te, sees Taiwan as an independent country. China has branded him a quote-unquote troublemaker and warned that his election would only increase the risk of a war. Remember, the previous two terms of DPP governments have witnessed a significant deterioration in relations with Taipei and Beijing. Now, certainly, this vote will set the course of cross-strait relations for at least the next 4 years. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Foreign Minister Wang Yi have repeatedly warned that the Chinese military is prepared to take Taiwan by force if necessary. If the DPP wins an unprecedented third term, Beijing could be up the ante on military pressure in Taiwan Strait. It could also cut internet cables or supply routes. Now, any escalation between China and Taiwan runs the risk of turning into something much more dangerous. The United States has a huge naval presence in the region, ranging from Australia in the south to Japan in the north. Remember, the United States is obliged by an act of the Congress to sell Taiwan weapons for its defense. In fact, just last month, Taiwan received $300 million worth of tactical communication equipment. On at least 4 occasions, US President Joe Biden has promised to protect Taiwan from Chinese military aggression. But Washington is yet to clarify exactly what form its support will take in the event of a Chinese attack. And with the two countries trying to mend relations, will the US step in at all? If it happens, a war in Taiwan would not just be devastating in its human toll. It could also devastate the global economy. Taiwan is near the Taiwanese Strait and the South China Sea. This makes up for one of the world's busiest shipping routes. In fact, close to half of the world's container ships pass through the Taiwan Strait every year. The strait links Northeast Asia with the Middle East and Europe, allowing the trade of food, energy sources, natural resources and consumer goods. A conflict in the area could disrupt global trade and drive up prices. Now, to decode this story further, we are being joined by Elizabeth Loris. She's joining us live from Taipei. Loris is an adjunct senior fellow in the Pacific Forum and the president of E. Loris Consulting. Welcome to the broadcast, Miss Loris.
Thank you.
So when we hear something by China, they are categorically saying that in case we see any kind of interference or direct communication between Taipei and Washington, D.C., we will intervene. But at the same time, we hear that Washington is sending its unofficial delegation, as it's calling it, to Taipei after the elections. What kind of reaction can we expect from Beijing?
Well, Beijing is never happy when the United States sends delegations over. Delegations are usually congressional delegations. There have been some other, more minor cabinet, people have come recently. But, even if there weren't an election, China is very upset when the United States sends people over because it is indicating that the United States believes that Taiwan is an entity that is politically distinct from mainland China. What China can do afterwards, as we've seen a lot, what it did after Nancy Pelosi's visit, is it puts more pressure on Taiwan. China knows that it can't go toe-to-toe with the United States, and so it's going to hurt Taiwan. So that's the biggest question of, what they're going to do, after the election, if a U.S. sends a delegation over.
Right, and if the DPP candidate Lai Ching-te actually wins, who is actually gunning for independence of Taiwan, what kind of an impact do you think China could have?
I would be a little bit careful about, using the concept, the term that Lai Ching-te is gunning for independence. Certainly in the past, he has indicated that Taiwan is already politically and economically, independent of mainland China, but no president of Taiwan can unilaterally declare independence. It actually has to go through the legislature. It has to be approved by the people in referendum. It's a multi-step process. And so what Lai Ching-te is, committed to, as candidates are, is, maintaining Taiwan's political distance from mainland China. They saw what happened in Hong Kong. After China had agreed to one country, two systems for 50 years after the 97 handover, and that hasn't worked out so well for the people, of Hong Kong. And so the voters who were voting Saturday are very much, aware of this. So each of the, the three main contenders, the three political parties here, candidates are saying that, they want to maintain the distinctiveness of Taiwan. No one's talking about independence.
I just want to quickly interject. The distinctiveness of Taiwan, which you refer to, do you think China is on board with that?
No, heavens, no, because Taiwan is a democracy and China is a Leninist, authoritarian one-party state. And so the candidates want to preserve Taiwan's democracy. And the United States, of course, would like to see Taiwan able to preserve its own democracy. U.S. official policy is the future of Taiwan needs to be decided on people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. Beijing wants that to be decided unilaterally, by force if necessary. And the United States, digresses and says, wait a minute, our agreements with China, U.S. one China policy is that it is up to the people of both Taiwan and mainland China regarding Taiwan's future.
All right, Ms. Loris, thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us all those insights from Taipei.
You're welcome.